Hi Yogi, and welcome to another slow flow practice with me, Oceana. Today's class marks the beginning of another deep dive into a new set of yoga postures. In this case, we will be focusing on side bends, so lateral movements that allow us to work a little bit more deeply into the muscles, the connective tissue, as well as the ligaments on the sides of the body. So of course we will be strengthening those muscles, which will give us stability through all of our balancing postures, but we'll also be stretching them. And really, I think because we don't get to work into those muscles deeply enough most of the time, these feel like some of the juiciest postures to me. So I hope you'll enjoy these next 4 weeks with me. As always, this first week is a beginner-friendly sequence. That does not mean that it is not suitable or valuable to more advanced yoga students. Of course it is. In this first week, we are setting up the foundations of these postures, and I'll be taking you through different techniques each week. That being said, if you do have a more advanced practice, for instance, when we go into our vinyasas, feel free to modify them up and make them more difficult for yourself. You should know how to do that. So in terms of props, you will not be needing anything in this particular class. If you're not working with a yoga mat, then you may wish to have a blanket or pillow nearby that you can elevate your sitting bones with in a seated pose. That's it. We'll be starting in child's pose at the back of the mat. So once you're ready, join me there, Yogi. So once you find your way into a child's pose, make sure that you give yourself enough space between the knees so you're still comfortable. The big toes are touching, the pinky fingers are all the way to the edges of the mat. And you can either rest the forehead on the floor, or if it doesn't quite reach, then make sure that you support the head with a brick, maybe a book or a blanket underneath the forehead if that's handy. And for the first couple rounds of breath here, simply observe the movement of the breath in the body. So follow each inhale through the nostrils, down the back of the throat, into the belly. Watch the ribs expand sideways and the chest lift towards the chin. And as you exhale, follow those movements in reverse. So that as we start to move into our practice, we're starting to also shift our attention inwards to cultivate a deeper sense of focus and a little bit more internal awareness. Start to notice the quality of your breathing, so whether the breath is soft and even, or whether there's a little bit of tension, maybe as the inhale hands off to the exhale, or vice versa. There's a little sense that something's stuck or holding on to one breath or the other. Just noticing the minutiae of the breathing, so really observing each breath as a unique individual event, bringing a sort of childlike curiosity to your breathing for once. And gently from here, we'll walk the hands over towards the left side of the room, or past the left side of our mat, I should say. And then press a little bit more firmly into your right fingertips to ground the right sitting bone down and back and create a little bit more spaciousness and length along the right side waist. Keeping our attention in the left rib cage, so breathe a little bit more actively into your left ribs to create more spaciousness on that side which is being compressed. But we're not just dumping all of our body and weight into that side, we're keeping both sides as long as we can. And gently from here, we'll walk the hands in the opposite direction as you inhale. Once you get over past the right edge of your mat, pressing firmly into your left fingertips to ground the left sitting bone. And again, if you can think of the breath in a more directional way, then sending it towards your right rib cage, which is currently being compressed. Oftentimes, I think we sort of surprise ourselves about how much control we actually have over our breathing. We sort of think that the breath is always the same. and that we're not really in control of it, but we are. And then very gently walk the hands back into center. From here, come into a tabletop position, so shoulders on top of the wrists, knees directly under the hips. Now we're going to go through a few rounds of a variation on cat-cow. So we'll tuck the toes under. As you inhale, we're going to tilt the tailbone up towards the ceiling, arch through the spine, roll the shoulders back, lifting the gaze upwards. And as you exhale, the tops of the feet press into the floor. You're going to press the hands into the ground and then start to round the spine up towards the ceiling, gently taking your sitting bones all the way back towards the heels into an extended arm child's pose. And flowing through a couple of rounds of this sequence on your own. So inhale, tuck the toes under, arch the spine. Exhale, press the tops of the feet into the ground and round the spine up towards the ceiling, sitting bones towards the heels. And as you keep moving through this little sequence, notice if you can match the movement to your own individual breath cycle, which might be slightly faster or slower than mine. And equally see if you can bring a little bit of awareness to the movement of your spine here. Maybe you're even able to count each individual vertebra as you continue to move through your last round here. And we'll meet in this next child's pose. Now, if you have any sort of wrist issues or you're still working on building your upper body strength, then this is a really great variation to stick with. Otherwise, we'll take this into a slightly higher difficulty level. So we'll tuck the toes under, we'll send the sitting bones up and back into our downward facing dog. And you can keep a really generous bend on the knees here. You can spin the inner elbows forward to hug your shoulder blades against your ribcage, and then pressing through your index finger and thumb to send the sitting bones a little bit higher. As you inhale, round the spine forward until the shoulders stack on top of your wrists in a plank position. Deep bend in the knees. Arch the spine as much as you can to lift the sitting bones up and back. And then see if you can find a few more spinal waves here. Really, again, seeing if you can match the movement to the breath. If you can bring that awareness to your individual vertebra as you move through this movement for your last couple of rounds. And we'll meet in this final downward dog here. Bring your big toes to touch. As you inhale, left leg lifts up and back into three-legged dog, pointing the toes up and back. As you exhale, left knee draws into the chest, shoulders on top of the wrists, and then step or shimmy the left foot forward towards the hands. You can use your arms to bring it there. Back knee to the floor. Engage your front heel towards the back knee to get a little bit of lift through your inner thighs. As you inhale, reach the arms all the way up and overhead into low lunge, Asana. Left hand to your left hip, right arm reaches up and overhead with the pinky finger edge spinning towards the ground. Again, see if you can bring a little bit more awareness into this left rib cage, which is currently being compressed, so that you're breathing a little bit more into that side of the body. And then if you don't need your left hand to support you here, then start to allow it to descend towards the floor. It might not reach all the way there. Gently, as you inhale, both arms reach up towards the ceiling. The hands come to the inside of your front foot. And then we're going to step this front foot out to the side of the hip, making sure that the edge of your foot is parallel to the edge of your mat. Pressing very firmly into your left hand. As you inhale, right arm reaches up and expands towards the ceiling. As you exhale, you're going to thread your right arm underneath the left. You'll feel free to bend your left elbow as much as you need to. And then it's as if you're reaching towards your left big toe here. And we're simply hovering above the floor. We'll do that 2 more times. As you inhale, open the chest, expand. As you exhale, thread the arm through, hovering above the ground. Final time here, let the inhale lift everything up. Let the exhale thread through. Now you could stay here with a little bit of a deeper bend on your left elbow. If you are able to, then you can release the back of your right arm to the floor. Maybe even the right ear can come to the ground if that's comfortable for your neck, so that you're creating a little bit more spaciousness between your shoulder blades. And again, if it's okay for the neck and your left hand is already very light, then you can reach it up towards the ceiling. Maybe you're even able to spin this top palm behind you and then tuck it towards the opposite hip, which will allow you to spin your chest open by pressing into the back of the right hand, lifting your top shoulder in thread needle. Any variation works just as well. Just different people have to go to different levels of extreme to get the same result. So don't worry if you ended up in stage 1. And very gently from here, we're going to unravel the top arm, place it to the floor in front of our face, and then pressing down into left fingertips to unravel the right hand under the right shoulder. Now, from here, we're going to try to do something a little bit more strengthening, of little variation on tiger's curl. So see if you can tuck, you can of course do this with the right knee on the floor, but otherwise tuck the right toes under and lift the right knee, shoulders on top of your wrists, and then see if you can retract the left knee as high towards your left elbow as you, your left armpit as you can, and then lift the left leg up and back into your 3-legged dog, point through your left big toe. We're going to take this into split dog, so bend your left knee, see if you can allow it to lift up towards the ceiling, keeping your shoulders in one line, square them towards the front of the mat, which usually means the left shoulder needs to move a little bit further back than the right. Maybe you're able to let the foot dangle behind you and really using gravity to give yourself a little bit more of a deeper stretch along the front of your left leg, the hip flexor, the psoas muscle, your quads. And very gently here, bring your top foot to the floor, find your downward dog position. Optional to stay in that downward dog to have a bit of rest in child's pose, or inhale forward to a high plank for a vinyasa. Lower the knees very gently, tuck the elbows in towards your ribcage to come all the way to the floor. Press the tops of the feet down and roll the shoulders back as you inhale into Cobra Pose, Bhujangasana. And as you exhale, press your way back via the knees to Downward Facing Dog, Ardha Mukha Svanasana. Big toes touch as we prepare for the second side. Right leg lifts into 3-legged dog. We point through the right big toe, reaching back. As you exhale, tiger's curl, right knee comes forward in towards the chest, pressing the floor away, shoulders on top of the wrists, and then step or shimmy the right foot between the hands, bring the back knee down and untuck your back toes. Again, get that engagement of your front heel towards the back knee to give yourself that lift through the inner thighs, and then reach the arms all the way up and overhead. Left hand to your left hip, right hand to the right hip, left arm reaching all the way up and overhead towards the right side of your mat. Again, optional here to stay, or if you have a really good sense that you're still breathing into your right rib cage, maybe you can release the right fingertips towards the floor. Again, they don't have to come all the way down. Left pinky finger edge to the ground. Last couple rounds of breath here. And then gently both hands as you inhale, reaching for the ceiling, plant them to the inside of your front foot. Now, again, we're going to come into thread needle, but I will turn myself around so it's a little bit easier for you to see. We're going to have the right foot straight out from the right hip. The edge of your foot is parallel to the edge of the right edge of your mat. Hands directly underneath your shoulders here. And actively pressing into your right hand. So you inhale, the left arm lifts up towards the ceiling. We're going to expand the chest as much as we can. And then as we exhale, that left hand threading underneath the right. Again, you can bend the right elbow, hovering an inch or two above the floor here. Let the inhale expand the chest, open it up, and exhale, taking you through, creating more space between the shoulders. Final time here as you inhale to lift. Exhale to thread left arm under the right. Again, option one to stay in this hovering position. There's a lot of good work happening here. Otherwise, you reach a little bit more towards your right big toe. You might be able to bring the back of your arm to the floor. Maybe even your left ear can come to the ground. As if you are bending your right elbow deeply enough, it should be fairly viable for most people. And then optional again, if there's no neck issues, you could lift your right arm up towards the ceiling. You could just spin the palm behind you and possibly even catch your opposite hip here, so that you're in a deeper, more advanced version of thread needle, but always remembering that any version is a good version of the pose. We do not always have to really be chasing the most difficult, most advanced options. Rather practicing a little bit of contentment with what we've been given by our body today. And gently unraveling the top arm, bringing the right fingertips in front of your face so that you can unravel yourself all the way to the front. I'm going to bring myself back to face forward, more or less gracefully here. Now, from this position, again, optional to keep your left knee to the floor, or you could tuck under the toes, shoulders on top of your wrists, and then lift the back knee. This is a slightly trickier version. Now we're going to draw the right knee as high as we can in towards the right armpit for a little variation on tiger's curl. As you inhale, right leg reaching behind you into three-legged dog. And you come into our split dog. So bend the right knee, let the right foot dangle behind you. Make sure that your shoulders are in one line. So left shoulder pulls slightly back. And then see if you can really allow the hip to open, the front line of the body into a little bit of a side bend as well. As one of my teachers always quite rightly says, this pose is a little bit more akin to a dog urinating on the side of a lamppost, but I might have already told you that joke, so if I am repeating myself, do let me know in the comments. And then top foot comes all the way down, find your downward dog, feet hip distance. Now, as always, yogi's choice. You can stay here, you can rest in a child's pose, or we come through a vinyasa, we inhale forward to a high plank, shoulders on top of the wrists, lowering the knees, we tuck the elbows really strongly in towards the ribcage. Your gaze travels forward as you lower down in slow motion with control, I hope. And then slowly, tops of the feet press down, roll the shoulders back, lift the chest from your back body. Exhale to press your way back via the knees to downward facing dog. Big toes touch at the back of the mat. As you inhale, left leg lifts into three-legged dog, reaching through the left big toe. As you exhale, left knee into tiger's curl, shoulders on top of the wrists. Step or shimmy the foot towards the front of the mat. Heels in one line, spin your back heel to the ground. Press into the outer edge of your back foot and the front big toe as you inhale. Windmill the arms, open up into Warrior Two, Virabhadrasana 2. Reaching through the knuckles, making sure that your front knee's tracking over second and third toes. So just a quick check. And then soften the shoulders. As you exhale, the back hand comes to your back thigh. The front palm reverses into a reverse warrior, as if the name wouldn't already suggest as much. Deepen the lunge on your final breath here. And use your next inhale to come back to Warrior Two. As you exhale, front forearm to the front thigh, top arm reaches up and overhead, pinky finger edge down for Parsvakonasana, extended side angle pose. pressing equally into both feet. See if you can create a little bit more space between your left ear and left shoulder. And then spin the chest open by rolling your lower ribs forward, top ribs back. Take yourself a little bit deeper into that pose. Either staying here for your final few rounds of breath, or bottom hand can lower all the way to the ground. As long as you're not collapsing your top shoulder, you can still spin the chest open and you're still breathing equally into both sides of the lungs. Very gently here, top hand comes to the inside of your front foot. We're going to turn our left toes to point towards the right edge of the mat, and then a deep bend in the left knee is going to take us into a high version of Skandasana, our side lunge. So we're going to draw the right toes towards our shin bone, and you can keep the hands on the floor for support or bring them together at the heart center. And then take all of that to the back of the mat, so shifting your weight across to your right foot, lifting the left toes. And here, hands to the floor if they're not already. Slowly descend your way all the way to the ground. Now feel free here to roll up a blanket and place it underneath your sitting bones. Of course, you can always roll up the back of your mat instead. Going to actively flex the toes towards our face, pressing the left heel down. As you inhale, right arm lengthens the right side of the waist upwards, then spin the hand behind the right sitting bone. As you inhale, same thing on the left side, reaching through those fingertips, and then either hugging or wrapping the top arm around the top knee, or hooking the elbow across the thigh if it's easily accessible. Shifting weight into your sitting bones equally. So for most of us, that will mean leaning a little bit more into our right sitting bone to ground it down. And then finding length from our seat all the way through the central axis of the spine, through the crown of the head. As you inhale, lengthen upwards. As you exhale, twist the chest open towards the left edge of your mat. And staying for a couple of rounds of breath here. As you inhale, find length, grow tall. As you exhale, twist the chest open. Gently unravel the top hand on your next inhale. Bring both hands to the outside of your left thigh. As you exhale, briefly bowing down to derotate the spine. And inhale to come all the way back up. Remove anything that you're sat on top of. And then roll your way all the way onto your spine. You can, for a moment, bend both of your knees, feet flat to the floor. We're going into a little bit of a core exercise. So the aim of the game is going to be to use our abdominal muscles to press the lower back into the ground. So to make that a really deep connection. So we'll start by reaching the right fingertips back overhead, and then you can draw the right knee into the chest, and you're going to use the left hand to the inside of the knee to press against the knee and resist it with your leg. So you're engaging the inner thigh muscles. Make sure that you're flexing the right toes towards the shin to protect your knee joint. And then optional, if you feel you could take this a little bit further, you can straighten the left leg. Again, the toes are flexing back. Now notice if that's created more of a curve in your lower back. So really engage the abdominals to press the lower back down. Maybe if you want to kick it up a notch, then you float your left leg above the floor, right hand above the ground, just an inch or two. And really actively pressing the lower back down, pressing the knee into the hand and vice versa for your final 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Release both feet to the ground with the knees bent up towards the ceiling, hands by the sides of your hips. From here, we're going to come into figure of four pose. So bring your right ankle just below the left knee. Again, the toes are actively flexing back to protect the knee joint. And from here, initially, I'm just going to want you to draw the knee in towards the chest without using your arms. So slowly float the knee in. See how close you can get that left knee while at the same time pressing your right knee forward and away from you. Now, once you've established what your natural range of motion is here, then you can either thread your right hand through the center of the legs and the left arm around the outside, catching the back of your thigh. Maybe you're even able to catch the front of your shin bone. If it's within easy reach and you're still able to relax your shoulders and head towards the floor. So you're finding eye of the needle here. I don't know why we've used so many needle related poses in this flow. If you have any conspiracy theories, you can drop those in the comment section below too. See if with each exhale you can soften a little bit more into the ground. And gently here with your next exhale, releasing the interlace of your hands wherever they are. You can take the arms out by the sides of your shoulders. We're going to release the left foot to the floor, keeping the legs exactly as they are. We're going to allow the sole of the right foot to come to the ground so that we come into a little bit of a reclined twist. Now, optional to keep your chin between your collarbones so you're gazing up at the ceiling, or if you wanted to take this a little bit further, you can let your gaze drift over across to your right elbow. Maybe even closing the eyes just for a breath or two to let the body settle into the ground. And very gently here on an inhale, bring the knees back into center, unravel the legs, draw both knees in towards your chest. Now, yogi's choice, you can roll over to one side and meet us standing in a chair pose, so as if you were sitting in an invisible chair at the front of your mat. Otherwise, we're going to take a few rocks through the spine. You can have the hands at the back of your knees, and you can see if you can do a little bit of a fanciful transition here. So take a couple of rocks through the spine to build momentum in the legs. And when you feel ready, then bring your feet together at the front of the mat, reach the arms up and overhead. Find your chair pose, sitting bones are heavy. Interlace the hands behind the back the normal way. Lift the chest and roll the shoulders back as you inhale. And as you exhale, start to fold forward. Feet hip distance, maybe even shoulder distance if you like to go a little bit deeper. Bringing the weight forward into the balls of your feet. You can keep the knees generously bent so that you can bring your belly all the way onto your thigh. And then see if you can reach your hands to the right and have a little gaze towards your left shoulder. You can always bend your right knee if that feels more comfortable. So again, we're coming into a little bit of a side bend variation. And then come back to center, go the opposite way. So you feel free to bend the left knee, draw the hands over to the left side behind you, have a little peek over your right shoulder. And then come back to center, release the hands down to the floor. From here, we're going to step the left foot back, right foot back into our downward facing dog. Yogi's choice to stay in that downward dog, to take rest in child's pose, or coming through vinyasa, inhale to your high plank. Lower the knees gently, untuck your toes, and with control as you exhale, lower all the way to the floor, Chaturanga Dandasana. Inhale into Cobra Pose, Bhujangasana, and let the exhale take you all the way back into your downward facing dog, Ardha Mukha Svanasana. Bring your big toes to touch at the back of the mat. As you inhale, right leg lifts up and back, point the toes for three-legged dog. As you exhale, gently draw the right knee forward in towards the chest, shoulders on top of your wrists. And then step or shimmy the right foot to the front of the mat. Spin your back heel down, pressing into the outer edge of your back foot as well as the front big toe. Windmill the arms and open it up into Warrior Two, Virabhadrasana 2. On the second side, really reaching through the knuckles, softening the shoulders, briefly checking that the center of your kneecap is tracking over the second and third toe. As you exhale, back hand to the back thigh, reverse the warrior to the back of the mat, right arm reaching up and overhead. Deepen the lunge for your final breath here. With the inhale, come back through warrior two, find your center and alignment. Exhale, right forearm to the front thigh, left arm up and overhead for Parajvakonasana, extended side angle pose. Again, pressing equally into both feet. See if you can roll your lower rib cage forward, top ribs moving back in space to take you deeper into the pose. And that left pinky finger edge is spinning down to the ground. Now, either staying here, or if it's easily accessible, right hand comes all the way to the floor for a deeper variation, but very much yogi's choice. And we stay for our final few rounds of breath, really lengthening through the entire left side of the body. And as you exhale, top hand spins down. You're going to point your right toes towards the left front corner of your mat. Shift your weight across into that left leg with the knee bent. Right toes might be able to lift, and either keeping the hands underneath your shoulders or lifting them to the center of your chest for a high version of Skandasana, our side lunge. And then we shift into the second leg, very gently lifting the right toes. Hands can come back to the floor as we make our way all the way to the ground. Again, if you used a blanket or you rolled up the back of your mat to support your sitting bones in our seated twist, then please feel free to do the same thing here. We're going to flex the right toes towards our face, but equally we're pressing the front heel down. Feel free to bend your right knee as much as is comfortable for you. And then draw the left knee into the chest, really hug it in. As you inhale, left arm reaches up towards the ceiling, left side waist lengthens, and then we spin the hand behind the sitting bone. Right hand lifts as you inhale, either hugging the arm around your top knee or bringing the elbow to your top thigh. And again, finding that equal weight in both sitting bones. So maybe shifting a little bit more weight into your left sitting bone here. For most of us, as you inhale, grow a little bit taller from the floor all the way up through crown of the head. As you exhale, spin the chest open towards the left edge of your mat. And then find a little bit of stillness for a couple of breaths here, continuously working with your breath, maybe even closing the eyes. Really feeling into the sensations of your spine here rather than aiming for any particular space in the room. So you're not really cranking your neck around. On your next inhale, gently unravel both hands to the outside of your right thigh. As you exhale, briefly bow down, derotate. Inhale to come all the way back upright. And from here, again, we'll slowly make our way onto the back body. You can have both feet on the floor with the knees bent towards the ceiling. We'll start with the left knee bent into the chest. Again, we're going to find that 90-degree angle of the leg and flex the left toes towards our shin. Now, right hand is going to press to the inside of the knee, and we're going to use the knee to resist the hand so that we're engaging inner thigh muscles. Left arm is reaching up and overhead. Optional to straighten the right leg. Again, flex the right toes towards your face and then press very, very actively through your abdominal muscles, the lower back towards the floor. Make that connection. Optional to float your right foot and the left arm off the ground, just an inch or two. Establish that connection of the lower back to the ground and stay for your final 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Release both feet, bend the knees. Aren't you so glad that I'm not like one of my early teachers who used to always tell us little stories about his daily life while he was counting it, and then he would forget where he was at in the counting. It was really frustrating. So left ankle goes on top of your right thigh. Again, make sure that you still have your left foot flexing back towards the shin. And again, we're starting with our active range of motion. So we're drawing the right knee into the chest, seeing how close we can actually get that knee in before we start to sort of compromise by lifting our lower back and sacrum off the floor. And then we're going to thread left hand between the legs, right hand to the outside. You can either grab hold of the back of your thigh, maybe all the way to the front of the shin, only picking the option that still allows you to rest your shoulders and head into the ground. And then finding just a little bit of stillness, a little bit of softness, connecting back to your breath. And gently, as we release the hands here, bring your right foot back to the floor. Keep the legs exactly as they are. You can bring the arms out, a cactus arms or T-shaped position if you have a little bit more space than I do. And from here, we're going to allow the sole of the left foot to come all the way to the ground. So that we're starting to come into our reclined twist. And as always, optional to keep your chin between your collarbones here, which is a little bit more forgiving for your neck. Otherwise, you could take the gaze over towards your left elbow, which takes your neck into the opposite twist to your spine. And again, you might wish to close the eyes here so that you can focus on the breath and the softness of the back body. Gently on an inhale, lift the gaze first, then lift your knees. From here, we'll unravel the legs and draw them in towards the chest. Again, yogi's choice. You can roll over to your left side and we'll meet in a chair pose at the front of the mat. If you want to try this more fanciful transition, hands go underneath your knees. You're going to use the legs to swing forwards and back and build a bit of momentum. Maybe after a couple of rounds of rocking here, you plant the feet at the front of your mat and as if it weren't no thing, you're going to find your way into that invisible chair behind you, Utkatasana. Interlacing the hands behind the back the unusual way, so go one pinky finger over as you exhale, fold into your legs. Feel free to Charlie Chaplin your feet as wide as your hips or maybe as wide as your shoulders if you prefer. And you can always keep a bend on the knees here to shift your way into the balls of the feet and rest the belly on top of your thighs. Or if you wanted to, of course, you can work towards straight legs. We'll take this again into a little side bend variation. So reaching the hands towards the right edge of the mat, bending the right knee enough so that we're really opening the muscles along the right chain of, or the right side of the body rather. Always gets confusing when I'm upside down. And then come back through center, taking the opposite direction. So feel free to bend that left knee. Reach the hands towards the left edge of your mat behind you. Lift your right shoulder gently and maybe take the gaze up as well if you feel happy there. And very gently come back to center. Release the hands to the floor. From here, right foot steps back, left foot steps back into our downward facing dog. Either staying in downward dog, taking a rest in child's pose, or coming through a vinyasa as you inhale, come forward to high plank. Lower the knees gently as you exhale, the elbows tuck into your ribs, come all the way to the floor. Chaturanga Dandasana. As you inhale, roll the shoulders back for your cobra pose. And at the exhale, draw your sitting bones up and back via the knees into your downward facing dog. Gently from here as you exhale, lower the knees all the way to the ground. Oh, I don't know why I've got such an itchy nose today. Keep getting tickled by hairs. So bring your hands underneath your shoulders. Bring the knees underneath your hips. Now we're going to come into half bow pose. So This means that we want to start to shift our awareness and weight into our right hand and the left knee so that we can draw the right leg back, pressing a little bit of weight, maybe for a moment or two, into the right heel to stretch the calf. And then shift the weight back forward into your hands. See if you can float the foot off the ground. Lift the left arm in the opposite direction. Now, in this balancing tabletop, you could be working on finding your stability. You could still have the left hand on the floor with very light fingertips. If you want to take a little bit further, see if you can bend your right knee with the foot flexed and reach the left arm behind you for the ankle or foot. Now, if you don't catch the ankle or foot, but you're comfortable here, simply floating and hovering the leg and arm, this is a really good option. If you did catch the foot, then press it away from you to open and expand the chest into a little back bend variation of half bow pose. And very gently, when you're ready, release the hand and the knee. You can give your hips and shoulders a little wiggle side to side into a sort of side cat-cow variation. And from here, we'll do the opposite side. So we'll shift our weight into the right knee. Left leg goes back to begin with. We're pressing a little bit of weight into that left calf to stretch the back of the leg. Our weight comes back forward into the hands so that we can float the foot off the ground. If we wish, we can make the right fingertips light to begin with, maybe even reach the right arm in the opposite direction for a balancing tabletop. Or if you're really comfortable there, see if you can bend your left knee, right hand reaches back, see if you can catch the foot or all the way to the ankle. Of course, again, if you didn't quite reach, keep them hovering. It's a really good active stretch. If you do catch them, press the foot away from you to lift your right shoulder and open the chest in that half bow just for a couple of rounds of breath, maybe not losing your balance quite yet. And then very gently release everything to the floor. Knees together or as wide as you're comfortable. Press your sitting bones back towards the heels. Lengthen the back of the body to give yourself a really deep counter posture here in your child's pose, Balasana. And on an inhale, come all the way forward onto your belly. Now, again, we're going to thread one arm underneath the other. So let's start with the left arm forward. We're going to thread the right hand underneath with the palm facing up towards the ceiling. So again, creating a little bit more space between the shoulder blades. And then taking the opposite knee, so our right knee at a right angle forward. Now you could stay here, or if it's fairly comfortable, you can bend your left elbow and then rest your head on top of the hand. If that's easily accessible, I might have to make a fist so that hopefully I'm not absolutely crunching my microphone too much here. And just seeing if we can find a little bit of softness here for a couple of rounds of breath. And then we'll do all of this on the second side. So we'll come through center by bringing the right leg all the way to the back of the mat first, then lifting the head and unraveling the arms. We'll take it straight to the second side. So right arm reaching forward, left arm goes underneath. Left palm facing up towards the ceiling. And you can always bend the right elbow so that the hand is directly underneath your head. And then left knee comes up at about hip height. Again, you're trying to find that 90-degree angle of your left leg. And you can maybe rest the head on your right hand if it's easily accessible. Maybe you're similar to me and you've made a little fist with your right hand so that you can support the head here and get the neck a little bit of relief. Just for a couple of rounds of breath. Gently, gently here, lift the head, bring your right foot all the way to the back of the mat again, and make your way onto the front body, unravel your arms. We're simply going to spin our way all the way onto our back side here, so literally having a little roly-poly onto the back body. Oh, I think I might have a bit of hay fever actually. So from here, arms overhead, you can grab your left wrist with your right hand here above the head, and see if you can walk the hands over towards the right side here. And then equally you'll be able to walk your feet over to the right side. Maybe you're even able to hook the left ankle above your right foot so that you're coming into Bananasana, literally banana pose. This is generally more well known as a yin yoga pose rather than traditional yoga. You might have already guessed that by the name. But really our intention is here to work a little bit deeper into the muscle tissue along the left side of the body, as well as the ligaments, the connective tissue, in a passive way, which has very different benefits to active stretches. So we are very much honouring our body with both forms of stretching. From here, very gently, we're going to walk the feet back into centre to begin with. We're going to bring the arms and shoulders back into centre and then swap sides. So I'm going to grab my right wrist with my left hand, reach the arms overhead, and draw that right arm towards the left edge of the mat. Maybe I'm even shimmying my shoulders a little bit over that side. If you can, walk your feet to the left as well. So you're literally bringing your body into that banana shape. And maybe you're able to hook your right foot above the left. So again, it just takes you a little bit deeper into that position, but it's very optional. Staying and finding a little bit of softness once you've got just a bit of a stretch sensation along that right side of the body. Let the body soften into it. Let the breath return back to its natural flow. And gently as you inhale, release the legs first, bring them into center, and then walk your shoulders and arms back into the center line as well. Release the hands by the sides of your hips, palms facing up. Take your feet as wide as the mat with the toes pointing outwards. Really let the legs be floppy here for a moment. Find a little bit of stillness. Let the effects of the practice seep in all the way from your skin tissue to the muscle tissue beneath that. Every single blood vessel, soaking in that goodness, the kindness that you've done to your body, all the way into the depths of your bone marrow. So you're really feeling the effects of your dedication and your practice here. From here, drawing one knee into the chest at a time, hugging them in with your arms. Have a little rock side to side to massage the back of the body against the floor. Feel free to take your head in the opposite direction to the knees. And very gently, either rolling over to your right side or using the hands underneath the knees to build a bit of momentum. We'll meet seated when you're ready, so you could rock through the spine again a couple of times. Once you find your way into a seated position, either the shins crossed one in front of the other or the heels in one line here, we'll bring the palms to touch in front of the chest. Bow the forehead towards the fingertips. Using these final moments of practice to give ourselves a little bit of gratitude for actually showing up on our yoga mats, for dedicating this time to ourselves and treating our body with kindness. And then we plant our sankalpa, our seed of positive intention that might guide us through the rest of today, the rest of our week, or the month that is ahead of us. The light in me recognizes the light in you. Namaste, Yogi. So thank you so much for joining me in today's practice. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course if you have any questions or feedback, pop them in the comments section down below. All of the information to find me on social media elsewhere will be in the video description, so hopefully that covers pretty much everything, and I'll see you back on the mat very soon, Yogi. Thank you for joining me. Bye.